Good morning, children. So today I will continue this lesson, that is plant life, the flower, from class 6th bio. So in the previous class I have already explained you about the structure of a flower. Today I will explain you what is pollination and different types of pollination as well as the different agents of pollination. So what is pollination? Actually, pollination means transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one plant to the stigma of another plant. That process is called pollination. Pollination is of two types. The first one is self-pollination and the second one is cross-pollination. You already know that pollen grains, they are present in the stamens of the male gamete. And these pollen grains, they transfer from anther to the stigma of the same flower or different flower of the same plant. So according to that, how means in the same flower they transfer or in the different plant they transfer. On that category, the pollination is of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination means when the pollen grains are transferred from anther of the flower to the stigma of the same flower. So that process is called self-pollination. Like in the pea plant we can see, in the pea plant flower we can see the self-pollination. But in cross-pollination what happens here, also the pollination takes place, means anther is transferring from one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same species of the different plant. So that process is called cross-pollination. And how these pollen grains transfer means what are the different agents of the pollination. So mostly there are three agents of the pollination. The first one is wind, second is water, and the third one is the animals. How the wind help in the pollination? So first we'll read what are the characteristics of the pollen grains, because not in all the plant the pollen grains are transferred through wind. In some plant the pollen grains are transferred through water also. In some plant the pollen grains are transferred through animals also. So we have to study the property of that pollen grains, which type of pollen grains it should have, what features it should have, so that it can be easily transmitted through wind or water or animals. So the property of the pollen grain which is transmitted by wind, that is not showy and colorful, means the pollen grain should not be so much showy, colorful or scented. Means it is not necessary that they should be colorful or showy, they should be simple, and the pollen grain should be lightweight, because light objects only they can easily move through the wind. So the pollen grain should be lightweight in nature, and they neither secrete scents or they secrete nectar, means they are neither scented nor they secrete nectar in their bodies, in the pollen grains. So these properties of the pollen grains, they can be only pollinated through wind, like in the maize. In the maize plant the pollen grains are very light in nature, they are not showy or colorful, and they are lightweight. The next we will study about how the pollination takes place through water. The feature in the pollen grains which is pollinated through water means that pollen grain should be small, which can be easily carried through the water, and they should also be lightweight, then only they can be easily carried. And they have, because they are mostly live in the water bodies, so their body should have protective waxy layer, so that it do not absorb the water. Water can flow easily from their body of the flower. So these property we can see in the pollen grains which are pollinated by water, for example Vallisneria. Next we will study the pollination which takes place through animals. So animals help in the pollination, like birds also can pollinate the pollen grains, bees, butterflies, bats and other animals. So these pollen grains are pollinated through bats, bees, birds, butterflies and so on. So their pollen grains should be large and they should also be showy and brightly colored. Why they should be showy and brightly colored means, if they are brightly colored and showy in nature, if they have sand, then only they can be attracted by the insects. Means we all know that bees sit on the flower and they suck the nectar. So these nectar, if they are scented and if they are brightly colored, then only the bees can sit on it and they can suck the nectar through this and transmit the pollen grains from one flower to another. So they should have nectar also. They should secrete nectar also. They should be scented also, and the flower should be brightly colored. And one more property is that their pollen grains should also be sticky and spiny. Why it should be sticky and spiny? Because if they are sticky and spiny, then only if the bees or any insects sit on the flower, that pollen grain can be easily stuck to the mouth of that bees. And when that bees sit on another flower, means that pollen grains can be easily transmitted from one flower to another. That's why the pollen grains should be sticky and spiny. So these are the properties of the pollen grains which are pollinated by animals. So there are mostly three agents of pollination: by wind, by water, and animals. Now after pollination, what happens to that pollen grains? So we all know that once it is transmitted from one flower to the another flower or in the same flower, so after that immediately the fertilization process takes place. So first you study what is fertilization. Fertilization means when the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete to form the zygote. That whole process is called fertilization. So what happens when the pollen grains are transmitted from one flower to the same flower or different flower? So here this pollen grains, when it is transmitted from the one flower to the pollen grain to the stigma of the female flower. So what happens? These pollen grains stick to this stigma, and immediately after a few moments the pollen tube is formed. Means the formation of pollen tube takes place, so that this pollen grain can easily enter into the ovary, and inside the ovary, when they come in contact with the ovary, means when they come in contact with the female gamete, immediately the fertilization takes place of the male gamete, that is the stamen, when it comes in contact with the ovary, then the fertilization takes place and they produce the zygote. And further, what happens to this zygote? They convert into embryo, and this embryo contains the baby plant, means they have the seed, and they first of all the embryo is converted into seed, and after that the seed is converted into the baby plant. So in this way the whole process of pollination takes place through this pollen tube. And immediately after the pollination, what happens? All the parts, that is the petals, leaves, sepal, whatever the structure of the flower, they fall out. Means they are having no use now, and only the main use is of the ovary and the ovule. Means this ovary converted into the fruit and ovule converted into the seed. So this is only the formation takes place during the fertilization, and other parts of the flower they fall off, and fruit converts into seed and ovary converts into ovule converts into seed. Now after that, once the formation of the fruit takes place, you should know what is the structure of the fruit. The fruit, actually the fruit we eat, that fruit is divided into three parts. It has three layers, we can say. I will first study the structure of the fruit. So actually the fruit is divided into three layers. The first one is the epicarp. The second one is the mesocarp, the second layer, and the third is the endocarp, that is the inner layer. So it is the outermost layer, epicarp. Mesocarp is the middle layer, and endocarp is the innermost layer. If we draw the structure of the fruit, simple fruit if we take, then we can categorize into 3 layers. That is, innermost we can see it is called endocarp, and in the endocarp only the seed is present, we can say. The second layer, that is the middle layer, which is called mesocarp, and mesocarp is only the pulpy and the fleshy layer. Means pulpy and the fleshy layer means this layer only can be edible. So this mesocarp is pulpy and fleshy, and this is the edible part of the fruit. Edible means which can be eaten. And the outermost layer, which is the protective part of the fruit, this is called epicarp. So this is the outer layer and it is the protective part of the fruit. So actually the fruit is divided into 3 layers, epicarp, mesocarp and endocarp. And the fruit is also divided into 2 types of fruit. That is, first one is the dry fruit and second one is the fleshy fruits. So this 2 we will discuss tomorrow, as well as the parts of the seed also. After you have to do the exercise of this lesson, whatever diagrams and notes I will give you, definitions of this chapter, you complete it in your bio copy. We will discuss in the next class. Thank you.